Welcome to the channel today, Where to Live in Dallas, Texas. And today, stick with me because I have a list of 7 homes that if you are buying in Dallas, Fort Worth, or any tech area in Texas, you're going to want to be aware of and either avoid buying or proceed with caution in buying. So my number 1 home on this list is homes that share walls. And I'm talking about duplexes, condos, townhomes. Now, I'm not saying you can't ever buy those kind of homes, but do proceed with caution. In the instance of a duplex, you're probably not going to be under an HOA, and you are going to be sharing a roof. And there's not going to be anybody or anything to cause the owner of the other side of the roof to have to repair or replace the roof if that happens. And it's not a matter of if it happens, it's when it happens, because we have hailstorms in Texas, especially North Texas. So, if you can buy the whole duplex, then that's something worth considering purchasing. But if you can only get half the duplex, I would really think about that, because what's going to happen if the other half of the duplex doesn't want to fix the roof. And I mean, sure, yeah, they'll let you pay for it and fix it, but do you want to do that? And do you want to have leaks coming into your house? So it's just something to think about. There are actually not as many duplexes in DFW area as there are in areas like Lubbock or San Antonio. And you might more often in those areas, and I can help you I have partners that I can help you find in those areas if you really want a duplex. But in those areas, you're a little more likely to find the whole thing. But also condos. Now, while I think condos might be good for uptown or downtown or certain areas where you really want the location and you're just not going to find anything, like at that price range. So you might want a condo. I'm not saying you can't get a condo, but really pay attention to how the outside is maintained, because in a condo, you only own the air inside. And those HOA fees just can get higher and higher. And by the time you're paying an extra $600 or more a month in HOA fees, you could have been paying that much extra towards a mortgage and could have had a home in, maybe it's not uptown, but maybe it's Addison or someplace like that, or Richardson, or think about that. Like, look at the total cost if you're going to be getting into a condo HOA. But it does give you a lock and leave lifestyle. So sometimes that is what people want. Just proceed with caution. And then another thing is townhomes. Now, of these 3 scenarios, I like townhomes the best. Used to build townhomes. They, the way they're constructed now, the walls, a firewall in the middle. Yes, you're going to share roofs. A lot of times, like maintenance on the outside, those kind of things are shared in the neighborhood. And initially, you're going to have low HOA fees. But as time goes up and the roof ages and things like that, they're going to get higher. Now, you want also an HOA that's going to they're saving money and they're, preparing for when those roofs have to be repaired, or, those rainy day savings and repairs, and not going to have to be as likely to do a special assessment. So you just want to find out kind of how it operates, what you're paying for, what the HOA is paying for. And while your personal insurance is going to be less, your HOA fees are going to be more, because they're providing insurance for some of these other items like a roof. So proceed with caution. My preference is to get people in a single family home, and, just instead of paying HOA fees, pay someone to do the yard and keep your lock and leave lifestyle. You could still have that with a single family home. At least in this area, I think that's sometimes a little bit better, just because of the insurance factor and the HOA factor. So think about that. That's my number 7. Number 6 is homes in noisy areas. Now, this may not bother you. I mean, I've shown a lot of houses, helped a lot of people, and some people, that's Lola, by the way. She's going in circles. She's taking a nap right there. Didn't know if you saw that. Anyway, so noisy areas. Like if you're backing up to a busy street, a railroad that goes by a lot frequently. We have some railroads here, not tons and tons. It's more busy roads or being under a flight pattern, for DFW or left field, something like that. And, some people it doesn't bother. They're just like, oh, I just get used to it. But do just check out the house at different times of day, and do know that that can affect the value of your home if there's a lot of those noises. And, talk about noise pollution. It also can be affected by the way the wind is blowing, the time of day. I noticed that a lot. If I used to live close to George Bush, and a lot of times I didn't really hardly hear it, but then once in a while the wind would be blowing a certain way and I would really hear it. But so think about that. If you are going to be in a place that you have maximum convenience, being really close to a main road, you will hear the road a little bit. So you might just accept it, but keep that in mind.
Texas isn't just a place, it's a promise. Texas opens doors to opportunities. It's big land and bold living. And whether it's city lights or country nights, Texas has it all. No state income tax, a booming economy, strong values, strong families. Your future starts here. Buy bold, live free, and own Texas. Your only decision is where to live in Texas. Whether you savor wide open skies or skyline views, our team in Dallas and trusted partners across Texas are here to guide you every step of the way. To be a part of Texas tomorrow, call today. Don't delay. Call Janée.
By the way, my name is Janée. I say don't delay, call Janée, because Where to Live in Dallas team and we can help you. We've helped a lot of people get into homes or sell their homes here in Dallas. And we would so much appreciate if you would like and follow the channel. That helps us out a lot if you hit that subscribe button. And also, if you're considering making a move in a week, a month, or even a year, go ahead and book a Zoom. That's my favorite. Or give me a text, send us, do a call, send an email, and we will get back with you. So remember, don't delay, call Janée. Let's get back to my other houses to watch out for, because this is stuff that you do need to know. And also I do want to mention before I keep going, one type of house that actually is not necessarily a red flag is when there's high days on market. That can be a really good house to buy, because it could be that the sellers just didn't price it right initially, and honestly, once you didn't price right coming out, if you got to thinking, oh, I got a buffer for negotiations, or maybe we can get this because I need to get this out of the house and pay this bill and buy this other house, whatever, and the seller wasn't really just looking at what the market was telling the seller and looking at that data, then it will sit on the market and it won't be a fresh listing and it gets bypassed. Or if it has bad photos, something like that. So a house with high days on market, people think there's something wrong with it, and there may not be anything wrong with it. So sometimes those are good ones to go look at. And by the time it's been on the market a long time, they may take an offer that they wouldn't have even dreamed of considering in the beginning. Because now, especially if they're motivated and really needing to sell, those are good houses to take a look at. So days on market isn't one that I say stay away from. I say that might be a green light of a really good house to look at, that it's just been overlooked. Just keep that in mind as a green light. Those can be really good properties. And I would also give a green light to a lot of the homes in good school districts. While maybe school district's not what you're interested in, you don't have kids, when you go to sell, you're going to be interested in the school district, because that's going to help you get the house sold. So back to my points here. My number 5 is homes that are not constructed to withstand Texas weather. Okay, so one of those that I'm gonna say is homes without garages. We get hailstorms here, and a couple times a year, and I've been pretty fortunate. Like I've parked outside quite a bit and not ever had where a hailstorm damaged my car, but it certainly happens, and I think you're gonna want a garage where you can park a vehicle in the garage. And think about that. And you guys with the big trucks, like if you're moving around different places in Texas, you might want to find out how tall is your truck and bring a tape measure with you when looking at houses. So just be sure that those garage doors are going to be big enough. Some of the garage doors are like Texas garage doors and they are a little bigger, but they're still not going to accommodate a truck that maybe like has been, like some guys do this thing and they raise the truck so that you may not find a garage that's tall enough for that. But I do recommend getting a house with a garage. It helps with resale and it helps protects your car, and not only your car, but also gives you some place to store some things. And it gets hot in Texas, and at least the garage has some shade and things stay a little cooler and a little cleaner, and you have a place to have some storage. We don't have basements here, anything like that. So another one is older homes with little or no insulation. So, it gets warm here and that AC will try to keep up, but if you don't have anything kind of keeping the air in, and you've got an older home, and some of the really older homes really don't have much insulation at all, you're just going to have really high utility bills because that home is going to be very difficult to regulate the temperature. Very, very old homes were built with porches that wrapped around, and you just went outside in the afternoon to cool off, and maybe a door that would create a breezeway from the front to the back, a couple of doors, things like that. They didn't have air conditioning. So some of those homes weren't really built for it. It was retroactively added, and they didn't have the insulation. Something to think about. Also, in Texas, I know you hear about tornadoes. We do get tornadoes. A couple times a year we get warnings. Here in Dallas, every Wednesday, or the first Wednesday of every month at noon, you're going to hear the sirens. That's the testing warning system for tornado warnings or other major storms or emergencies, and you'll hear that. Don't get scared. But, I've lived in Texas for years. I've never been in a tornado. We do occasionally, they get here and they cause some damage. And we are in Tornado Alley. If you look at the map of the U.S., you can see that we are in Tornado Alley. But the homes that are a little more dangerous to live in are the mobile homes. So you might think about kind of where that mobile home is located if you're buying a mobile home, because they're made out of different materials and things like that. And the odds of something happening, you getting injured, it's higher if it's a mobile home. So keep that in mind. You might want to have a plan for where you can go if there's a tornado, or put in a storm shelter or something like that. But like I said, I've certainly lived through the tornado warnings, and you want to go to a certain place in the house, all that kind of thing. But generally, they're scarier than what they actually do in destruction. But when they do hit, everything just can come apart. It can do a lot of damage. My number 4 is an ugly house, or one with a poor layout. So if it's ugly or has a poor layout, unless you're really good at envisioning how you're going to fix that, you probably don't want to buy that house. Now, I'm not talking about the houses that are ugly because the photos are bad, or it's cluttered, or it needs a fresh coat of paint. We can totally see through that and, look at the house and see that it has the good bones and it just needs a little bit of cleaning and refreshing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about ugly houses that are like small windows. It has a weird kind of balance of symmetry of the look of it. The layout is really odd. You'd have to totally redo things. Houses with one bathroom aren't as desirable. Of course, if it's just one bedroom, condo kind of thing, like you could just have one bathroom. But generally, even people with just one bedroom want that, at least a little guest half bathroom. So, think about those kind of things, unless you're really wanting to get into remodeling or redoing a house that just, you can do quite a bit with landscaping and doing new things to the front elevation and making it pretty, modifying, an interior. If you get somebody structural in to take down some walls, if that's possible, there are things you can do. But do be careful sinking your money into something that is really ugly or does not have good bones, because it may cost you more than it's worth to get it to a livable state. And also watch out for those ugly houses where it's just going to be they're already asking full market value for that area, but yet, somebody's uncle came in and laid the tile and it's uneven and you're going to stub your toe and they just didn't do a good job. Like, you're going to have to rip all of that out and put in all new flooring. And when you watch these shows on TV, HGTV, I feel like they just put the cost of the materials and not the labor into what those estimates are. So it always kind of ends up creeping up on you and costing more than you think it will. All of those projects. So always allocate more than you think it will. So an ugly house could be a good deal, but depends. Proceed with caution. Number 3 is an overpriced home. Okay, so, that's one of the things why you want a real estate professional with you on your side to negotiate, because we have access to the data and we can look at it and help you understand that, that home that is maybe like, here's an example, like it's been beautifully redone and you fall in love with the inside and it's $650,000 and everything else in the neighborhood is $375,000, but it hasn't been redone. Well, it's not really going to be like, it's overdone for the neighborhood. So it's not really, I don't know what they put into it, whoever bought it and flipped it, but don't fall in love just with those beautiful finish outs. It could have new lighting and new paint and new cabinets and, sinks and fixtures and everything. But, if we go in the garage and that electrical panel has been there since the day it was built in 1962, and, maybe they didn't even look at the pipes, or the roof hasn't been replaced and the HVAC isn't functioning properly, like those are things that really matter. And I don't want you to get too caught up in, oh, it's just so beautiful, but it hasn't had the systems updated. So that is something that you really have to look at. And also, if you're looking at a house that's been flipped, and there are some good flippers out there that do a beautiful, wonderful job, but you want to ask for the permits so that, like if rooms have been added and changes have been made, that you're not going to run into an insurance problem or a problem, with taxes down the road or when you go to resell it. So you want to ask for those permits. So just remember, like if you buy that house at $650 and something changes in your life and you thought you were going to be here permanently, but you have to move in 2 years, you may be underwater on that house trying to sell it. So, there's so many houses in Dallas bought by investment companies and they flip it. I'm not saying that there aren't good ones, but I am saying just, proceed with caution. We have to look at the systems. That's why you get inspection. But beyond looking at the systems, we can also just look at, hey, does this neighborhood support this? Because, it is kind of hard to be the first one in the neighborhood to start upgrading the neighborhood. It takes a little time for a neighborhood to revitalize a little bit. And I love that flippers do bring new life to these older houses, but we want to make sure that you're not overpaying. Okay. Number 2 is foreclosure homes or condemned homes. Now, foreclosures, of course, I know a lot of people have bought foreclosures, had good experiences. The thing is, you have to be willing to take on some risk if you are going to do that, because you don't know, you're not going to get a seller's disclosure. You're not going to know. This house may have been sitting vacant. It could have had, some rodent damage, a roof leak that's not been addressed. It could have other kinds of pests. We do get, termites and things like that here. It could have had, we freeze usually, not every year, but like once a year. And if it wasn't cared for, the cabinets opened underneath, the pipes dripping, or the water turned off, then you might have a busted pipe somewhere that wasn't dealt with. It could have vandalism because it's been sitting empty. There's just a lot of things that could happen, and you're kind of just getting like, you're going to know like the location and maybe a little bit what the outside looks, but you're not really going to know what you're getting into with a foreclosure. And the banks are slow at getting these deals done. They could take 90 days easily. If there's a tenant in there, They're going to be given up to 90 days to get out. So that's going to delay anything that you're wanting to do to start to clean it up and fix it up. You know, it can just run into a lot of surprises. So you need to be pretty savvy and have a lot of contractors and people that can do that, and have a buffer for some risk, or that you're doing enough of them that you can lose on one. So just be careful. It seems really easy peasy, and like, you know, I know a lot of people do it, but there's a lot of competition for it these days, especially in Dallas, to get those homes. And you also don't want to find yourself caught up in the excitement and just, you know, bid a little more, and then there goes, you've overspent by the time you do all the repairs. Okay, and my number one kind of home that I want you to watch out for is a home that needs foundation repairs. And that is very common in Texas, actually. I mean, some people say there's two types of homes, one that's had a foundation repair and one that's going to need one. I don't know that that's quite so true, because there are a lot that haven't had it. But, you know, we have clay soil, and we at least, like, in the first 3 to 5 years, usually a house settles, and it's, you know, that's kind of where it's going to be. But with our clay soil, if you're not like watering, one of the big reasons you want, you know, you can put in a sprinkler system or go out and water, but you want to keep as much as possible consistent moisture on the outside of your house, because we have these really long, hot, dry summers, and we have clay soil. So, I mean, you know what happens with clay when it dries out, it shrinks and it cracks and all that moisture's out. And then when it gets wet, it expands again. So you have the soil under your house is doing this expansion and contraction sort of thing. And you've got that slab on top. And while, you know, the way the slabs are now constructed, they've got some expansion joints and some different things. They're better construction than they used to be. It still has to settle, and it's still, if it's neglected, you know, you can run into problems. So, you know, something you get with a new construction homes, you'll get like a 10-year warranty, which is a helpful thing. But there's no guarantees that you won't have some kind of issue. And if we're out looking at houses, I have, you know, sometimes I pulled out my lipstick and put it on the floor because I can feel it when I'm walking. I'll go, oh, do you guys feel that? You know, we'll notice it. And I've just pulled out lipstick and watched it just roll down the floor. I had some clients recently that said, hey, you know, well, at least, you know, the kids could like roll their cars around in here. So it really can be that noticeable that you feel yourself walking up or walking down or things like that. And it's just not even. So pay attention to that. You can also put a tennis ball, you know, bring that, a pin that is not, you know, a pin that will like roll, something like that. You could put that on the floor if you just don't have a ball with you. You can also kind of check the doors, kind of do them half open, see if they move. Doors that are stuck can be an indicator. Diagonal cracks, especially like at doorways and windows. If you go outside and see a stair step crack on an outside wall. I was in a house recently. We felt that movement in one of the rooms. Then we went outside, and correlating to that room, we could see a stair step crack, and it looked like somebody had kind of tried to patch it, but not really. And so they were selling this house they hadn't lived in very long, and it kind of put up my antenna, like there's more to this than they're telling us probably. So that's also when an inspection comes into play, and you can get a foundation looked at. These foundation companies, some of them have insured and some don't. And if there has been a foundation repair to the house, you want to have a transferable warranty, and you usually have about a year to transfer that. You want to be sure you pay that $100 or whatever it is to transfer that to your name and get that warranty if there has been a repair. But proceed with caution. Find out what company repaired it. Find out what all they did, and then, you know, and also what kind of other structural repairs there had to be, because if the foundation breaks, you might have to relay some brick. You might have to repair drywall. You might have to replace windows. I mean, it can get to be a lot of cosmetic repairs that might even cost more than the foundation. And a foundation repair can easily be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So it's something you really want to look at carefully. It's kind of interesting if you watch the foundation guys come in and evaluate the house, they have what looks like a hose and they put water in it, and then it's filled partially with water, and then the water levels are measured, like the differences between different parts of the house. And so they kind of map out certain points in the house, and will say, they'll pick a baseline and then they'll say, well, this is up an inch or this is down half an inch, and mark those points around. And that's where they figure out where to put piers in the ground that go down deeper to help support that foundation. And that's a very simplified explanation of a foundation repair. If you're coming from an area where there's basements, maybe you're on a mission to find a house with a basement, and I would caution you about that, because it's not the same here. And unless, there's been some really state-of-the-art engineering going on with that basement, I just probably wouldn't do it. So keep all those in mind. And okay, I think that's it.